What's poppin', everybody? This is the Cartoon Kid Ray Rollins coming to y'all today with my review of the return of Rick and Morty with Season 5, Episode 1, Mort Dinner Rick Andre. You guys know, with this being the season premiere of Rick and Morty, man, I couldn't turn down reviewing this episode. So, you guys know how we usually do this, man. Before I start breaking this episode down, I'm gonna have to give y'all that episode breakdown. So this episode starts off with Rick and Morty on what looks to be another adventure, which end up turning into a big ass war. Rick ends up getting, I guess you could say, hurt in the event. And Morty, being the wonderful grandson that he is, he's gonna pull his granddaddy out of this dangerous situation. So as Morty's getting them out of that jam, he's hitting up Jessica to hopefully get some closure on, whatever situation that they got going between them. And he's basically telling her that, I wish things could have went better between us or whatever. And that phone call with Jessica turns into a date between the two, in which they're gonna, watch a movie together. So Morty is pretty ecstatic about this. He ends up losing control of Rick's ship-like car, and they ended up landing on the ocean. Rick ends up regaining consciousness, I guess you can say, and he notices that they're on the ocean, and Rick's like, oh shit, we're on the ocean on Earth? And Rick basically ends up getting petrified of the whole situation, and he basically tells Morty that he fucked up. And out of the water comes this parody, I guess you could say, of Aquaman. And this dude's name is Mr. Nimbus, who actually turns out to be Rick's nemesis, okay? Which explains why Rick's, has a little bit of fear of him and whatnot. So this situation on the ocean leads Rick and Mr. Nimbus to sit down and have a treaty between the two to bring peace, I guess you can say. So Rick is at the house getting everything all set up for the peace treaty, right? And we get a whole breakdown of what's basically going to be going down with the family throughout this entire episode. Rick gives Summer the job of recovering Mr. Nimbus's power shell from the Mariana Trench, right? Is it Mr. Nimbus or King Nimbus? I keep calling him Mr. Nimbus, and I want to call him King Nimbus. Either way, you guys know what the hell I mean. I'm just going to call him Nimbus for the rest of the video. We find out that Beth and Jerry are a sex-positive couple. Beth has a little bit more respect for Jerry, which, this is just an assumption here. You can say throughout this episode, if you've seen it already, Jerry comes off to me to be more confident than he used to be. Now I'll explain a little bit later on why. But, those two are a sex-positive couple, and Morty has his whole thing going on with Jessica. They're going to sit down and watch a movie together. So, Mr. Nimbus arrives to the house, right? And they all come out to greet him. And this is where Jerry starts showing a little bit of his confident side. And he's basically telling Mr. Nimbus to fuck off, right? Jerry even calls the police, and Mr. Nimbus gives this wonderful demonstration that he controls the police, telling the police to fight, and then telling them to fuck, and the police started smashing each other, and then he told them to flee, and they got in their cars and dipped off. Wonderful demonstration of power, don't you think? So the main takeaway of this scene is that Nimbus, the king of the ocean, basically invites Beth and Jerry to have a good old-fashioned menage a trois with them. So Nimbus ends up coming into the house and sitting down with Rick to have their little peace treaty or whatever, right? And Jessica shows up to have her little date with Morty. Now, during his little date, Morty is on wine duty for Rick and Nimbus. The wine's stored in this little Narnia realm, which makes it age quicker. So throughout the episode, Morty is trying to get wine for Jessica, but Nimbus keeps drinking it all. He ends up getting into a war with the people of the little Narnia realm. So that's a pretty short but extensive summary of the episode. Rick and Nimbus are trying to discuss a little peace treaty between the two, and Morty is on wine duty, which ends up turning into a war with the people of this Narnia realm, I guess you can say. Before I get into discussing moments, my first initial thoughts of this being the opening episode of the 5th season of Rick and Morty is that this is a pretty strong opener. I definitely gotta say that it was way better than the season 4 opener. Some main takeaways that I noticed from this episode is that, for one, Jerry, as I said earlier, seemed to be more confident in these rather odd, otherworldly situations that Rick brings upon the family. In previous seasons, when Jerry is caught in the crosshairs of these otherworldly situations, he always tended to clam up. Before this episode, he used to be a pushover. But in this episode, as I said earlier, he threatened to call the police on Nimbus, which, let's be honest, wouldn't have accomplished anything. But the point is, he still took charge in that situation. You can say his boost of confidence comes from getting a little bit more respect from Beth, who knows? That's just a theory in my book, but that's the number one thing that I noticed, like, clear off the bat. Second thing is, I love Morty, man, but it just breaks my heart to see him take L after L after L. In the Death Crystal episode, I believe I said something along the lines of, Morty is the more clear-headed character out of the Rick and Morty duo. His job is to keep Rick's head on straight and to be the more clear, rational thinking one out of the duo. And to see Rick treat him as, like, I wouldn't say a piece of trash, but basically telling him that he's a fuck up and that he can't do anything right. Rick gets upset at him for landing on the ocean, which basically summoned Mr. Nimbus, which is why he tasked Summer with recovering Nimbus's shell from the trench. And then he's on his ass about not getting the wine to Nimbus and him in time. Morty is basically getting smacked around this entire episode figuratively. But one good thing I can say is that he finally gets a date with Jessica, which sadly doesn't pan out in the end. And unfortunately for Morty, man, at the end of the episode, Jessica decided that it's best that they just stay friends. So there's no relationship in the cards, but at least Morty got a little kiss out of the situation, man. So he picked up somewhat of a W in that episode. Another cool thing that I can say too about this episode is that it's cool to see that Rick has somewhat of a rival. You can see at the beginning of the episode, he gets petrified when Morty lands on the ocean and he summons Nimbus. Throughout the episode, you can see Rick somewhat submitting to our Aquaman parody homie. And you gotta think, with Rick being as powerful as he is, there's something about Nimbus that makes Rick fear him. I don't know what it is necessarily, but it's kind of unfortunate that you set Rick up with a rival and then you kind of kill it off in one episode. Now, granted, Nimbus discovers that Rick tried to have Summer take his shell that gives him all his powers, and it's not necessarily the end of their rivalry because Nimbus ends up beating the fuck out of him and sending him to jail. So maybe there's more to this, but you can argue that this episode could have been better in many different ways. However, to get to my review portion, I gotta say, this was a pretty interesting episode to open up season 5 with. And as I said earlier, this was leaps and bounds better than the opener for season 4, which, if I'm correct, don't quote me on this, I believe that was a Death Crystal episode. We finally get introduced to someone who Rick fears, man. And seeing that Rick fears Nimbus, you can even argue that Rick may consider him as an equal or as someone who's better than him. Seeing that they didn't get the whole peace treaty signed and resolved in this episode, this may be set up for a whole rivalry that can unfold throughout maybe the season or even future seasons of the series. So who knows, man? But that's something that I do want to see. I want to see a nice good old fight between Rick and our King of the Ocean homie Nimbus. One thing that I kind of forgot while watching this episode for the first time is that where was Space Beth at, man? We only seen one Beth in this episode, but in the promo for next week's episode, we learned that Rick has different versions of the family scattered throughout the country, which, oh lord, is going to be a fun one. But I'm sure we'll see more of Space Beth either in that episode or sometime throughout the season. But she's still out there, man. The whole war between Morty and the people of the little Narnia realm was, you can argue, the backbone of the episode. I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about that. Like, call me crazy. But in season 4, I wasn't a big fan of like all the action-y episodes. And you might be saying, why the hell are you watching Rick and Morty then? What I mean by that is, I love episodes where Rick and Morty go on a special quest to a different planet to complete a certain goal or objective of some type. But to see Morty go into this little doorway where he stores the wine and whatnot, which teleports him to the Narnia realm, and to see him get into a war with those people, I think it's kind of pointless if you ask me. if there's any action scenes at all from this episode, it should stem from the storyline with Mr. Nimbus. To be honest with you, I'd rather see an episode where Summer went down to the trench to recover the shell. I would have loved to see that above this whole war between Morty and the Narnia people. I just feel like that was just pointless action that didn't need to be there and didn't necessarily contribute to the episode. That's just my personal opinion. But overall, I'm very excited to see that Rick and Morty has returned, and they returned with a good episode. After seeing season 4, I was kind of worried of the direction the show was taking, because out of season 4, I can only pick out a few episodes that I can coin as good or decent. But there was a handful of episodes that were like, oh boy, this is not up my alley. That's just my personal opinion. Season 4 wasn't hitting, but this is a good episode to start season 5 off with. My personal opinion, we could have done without the whole Narnia war. We could have switched that out and had a whole adventure of Summer going down to the trench to recover Nimbus's shell, because that sub-story at least connects with the main plot story of Nimbus. And it feels to me personally that it just makes more sense to have that storyline in there instead of the whole Narnia war. But like I said, that's just my personal opinion. Overall, man, I'm going to have to hit this episode with a 7 out of 10. I would give it a 6.5, but man, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just happy to see Rick and Morty back in action, and I'm very happy and pleased to see that this was a fair episode. It wasn't anything like the Death Crystal episode or the Story Train episode or the Heist movie episode. Oh boy, that wasn't a good one. This was a fair episode. Could they have done better? Absolutely. But you know what? They could have done worse. So that's why I'm going to hit this episode with a 7 out of 10. I'm really excited to see what episode 2 is going to be about and how it will unfold. But that has been my review of Rick and Morty Season 5, Episode 1, the premiere episode of Season 5, baby, titled Mort Dinner Rick Andre. Oh, Lord, these weird names. But I'm the Cartoon Kid Ray Rollins, man. Toss your opinions and thoughts down in the comments box below. Do you agree with me about the whole Narnia war? Do you disagree with me? Do you want to cuss me out or give me any suggestions on episodes to review, man? That's what the comments are there for, man. Toss them down there. And if you want, check out any other videos that are on my channel. Until then, I love you guys, and I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace out, everybody.